Hi, this is Tamsen Granger.
And this is Dan Abuhoff.
With Tamsen and Dan read the paper on Sunday, November 17th.
A very gray day.
In 2019.
Yes.
But it's kind of a happy day because we get to belatedly wish happy birthday to Granger.
Yes.
Our oldest son.
Oh, it's not? Yes, that's true.
He just flew in, and boy, are his arms tired.
It's so weak. It's so weak.
From Bogota.
Yeah.
And so happy birthday, Granger. We're
Yes.
going to have some cake tonight.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
Cake tonight. Although we're looking forward to Thanksgiving, too. Already the ruminations, the sounds, the noises that accompany Thanksgiving.
Really?
Starting
Are you talking farts, burps, etc.?
No, don't say that. I'm just talking about, the talk about preparations. I mentioned to you, I find myself in a conversation in the cafeteria. My cafeteria at work is selling pies. Sign up for a pie, take it home, and be the hero at Thanksgiving. And even others at work know me well enough to say, or know you well enough to say, that, Dan, if you buy and take home a pie, you'll be shocked. Which is true, because you...
I mean, who eats store-bought pie?
Who eats... No, not in this household. Not in this household. There are pies to be baked.
That's not happening.
That's not happening.
We don't need none of that.
Right. Well, that's true. So, should we jump to the excitement last night? Yes.
What was that?
We went to the movies. I took you to the cinema.
Yeah, we finally got out.
Well, we got out. Come on, we get out a lot. But we saw Jojo Rabbit. Now, this is interesting in that I didn't know anything about Jojo Rabbit. I had
Jojo Rabbit,
yes.
A movie.
Yes. Let me prelude here. Let me give you the prologue. I had no idea about this movie. It wasn't on my list. And like you and Zeke, our youngest,
Armand.
and Armand, our bartender, plotted that this is the movie we should see, and I acquiesced, and I'm glad I did. It was really good. Now, explain the movie. Go ahead.
No, I'm not explaining it.
Well,
you're explaining it.
You got to say what it's about.
You say what it's about.
All right. What it's about, this young child, this 10-year-old, who's in a German city, I presume it's Berlin, toward the end of the war. And the Nazis are still in charge, although the handwriting's almost on the wall that they're not going to prevail. But this kid's being brought up in a culture in which, the regime is the Nazi regime, and young boys are sort of conditioned to get excited about that, as young boys do. It's all about being tough and getting into war, etc. And he's carried away as a young boy would with the Nazi regime, but not in a real intellectual way. And the story it starts out almost buffoonish. It's comic at the beginning, absurdly comic.
Yeah, it's darkly humorous.
Humorous.
No, it's humorous. I wouldn't say it's... In some ways, it's not dark.
Yeah.
It does not shy away from the horrors of that time period and the Nazis. It's quite clear about that. And yet, it's presented in a very funny way.
Yes, it changed. It's a miracle, the movie, in my mind, in terms of the way it handles tone.
Who's it made by?
I looked it up. It's pronounced Taika Waititi, who is a New Zealand director who has done Marvel movies, which means two things. He did the last Thor movie that we saw. It means two things. One, it means that, he's a fairly accomplished director and well-known. And number two, apparently he's loaded. So he's got a lot of money, and that gives him the capital to make a movie like this. He can get the movie financed. Because you look at the movie and say, who would make this movie? But he got a group to make the movie. It is so risky in my mind in terms of tone, like the tone that you described.
Well, it's hard to explain. If you suggest it to people, I think you just wrote it off immediately because comedy about
before I saw it,
Hitler.
Before I saw it,
you're not interested, right?
Well,
okay, so you weren't going farther than that,
right? But that's not what it is.
It has great people in it. Scarlett Johansson as the young boy's mother,
right,
is really kind of fabulous.
She's very good in the movie, and I hadn't heard nothing about it.
She's funny. She's nuanced.
Right.
She's great. Sam Rockwell is funny.
Yeah.
The child. Do you have his name?
No, I don't have his name. But
he was brilliant.
He was fabulous. And look, the movie is...
And Waititi is in it. He plays
Hitler.
The child's imaginary friend, who is Adolf Hitler.
And it's sort of comic because it's a childlike version, a childlike view of Hitler. And he's there as a function to be a friend, and he's there in a very simple-minded way a child might view a so-called heroic figure as imposed by the existing regime. But at the end of the day, it's an incredibly moving film, I thought.
It really is. It really is.
So that's why I use the word miracle. Maybe miracle's too strong a word. But to have that tone and to be as incredibly moving as this movie is and to move in and out, that's hard to do.
That's hard to do.
That is hard to do.
It really is so much closer to how life is.
That's a good point. That's exactly right. Well, let me just enlarge on that, because that's a brilliant point. And the reason I think that it can be that way is because it's from the perspective of the people on the ground who live in the city. It's not really about the military leaders. It's not about the big battles. It's about people trying to go about their day by day as they negotiate what the heck's going on. And so it has a lot of dimension to it.
And, it's done in a the comedy is great. It's anachronistic.
Yeah.
Has all kinds of American contemporary expressions.
Right.
And
music.
The accents are German accents, but they're kind of faux German accents.
Right.
And they're, kind of,
Hogan's Heroes, basically.
Yeah, but, they're kind of comic book versions of how,
right.
Hitler might talk or, et cetera, how Nazis speak. And what they think. So,
well,
it really...
I thought it was really good. I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes. It's one of those rare films where the critics are not as positive as the audience. The critics are 79%, which is pretty good. Yeah. The audience is 96%.
Yeah. I think that's interesting.
I highly recommend this movie. I could see this movie being Best Picture. I wouldn't say it's the favorite, but the reason it is a better chance than Parasite, the other movie that's being talked about that's a little bit of an independent picture, is for a simple reason. It's in English. Parasite's going to be nominated for Best Foreign Language Picture.
Oh, really?
And those pictures don't usually win. So in any event, I really recommend this movie.
Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah. Really pleasantly surprised. And you went to a place that you loved.
Well,
but,
restaurant review.
It wasn't so.
I have a restaurant review here.
Yes, you
ding,
did.
Ding, ding.
There's no ding, ding, ding.
So about once a year, I go out to lunch with my friends Kathy and Lisa. And every time we have a great time, we say we've got to do this once a month. And we still just do it once a year.
Right, that's
But
about
this
right.
year we went to a restaurant in Milford, New Jersey, which is just north of Frenchtown, New Jersey.
Yeah, it's a little bit ways north, but yeah.
And it's called Canal House Station. All right. And it is a joint venture of Melissa Hamilton and Christopher Hersheimer. Two women who are, I guess started out in, magazines, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them worked for Saveur. And long story short, they founded their own kind of culinary and design business in about 2007, located in Lambertville. And Melissa Hamilton is interesting because she's the daughter of Jim Hamilton, who has the fun restaurant Hamilton's Grill for so many years in Lambertville. Right. And he's also a designer. He's a designer he's a set designer.
Jim passed away a couple of years ago.
But he designed many terrific restaurants in the area.
But isn't her sister well known too?
Gabrielle Hamilton is the owner of Prune.
Right.
The restaurant in New York City.
And she's written a lot, hasn't she?
She's a wonderful writer. She writes an occasional column in the New York Times Magazine section with a recipe about food. But she's also written several books. Is it several books? Maybe I'm overstating.
A couple books. I think a couple books. But the main point, so this restaurant, right up your alley, right up you and the gals' alley, right?
Well, I guess they had a new cookbook that came out recently.
Yeah.
Possibly Canal House Cooks Every Day. And so I've been reading a lot about them.
Yeah.
And they did a stint in the Wall Street Journal has a celebrity chef or a good chef that gives a recipe every week for a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And they were doing that. So they were on my radar. And, someone mentioned that there was this new restaurant. So I immediately looked it up. And the menu is limited.
Yeah.
Very limited. And they're open for breakfast and lunch Wednesday through Sunday. And at Sunday, they close at 4. They serve something called Sunday supper.
Yeah.
And it ends at 4.
They do it the way they want.
I knew I couldn't take you. Because the menu is so limited at breakfast. Well, if you don't like those 4 things.
Yeah, but it's also because it's a little bit of a cute place, and it's a lot about the way it looks. It's a converted.
It's not a cute place.
It's converted.
It's not a cute place.
But it's converted rail station, right?
It's an old railroad station.
Right.
Right. It's exquisite.
Okay.
It defies expectations. It is perfect.
All right.
All right. It is a delight to be there.
Right.
And if you go online and look at the pictures, you don't pick that up.
Yeah.
You need to be there. And also, they have a big open kitchen.
Yeah.
You walk in, and there they are cooking. They have these long common tables. And then in the other half of the restaurant, they have smaller tables as well. And so anyway, we had a terrific lunch. We went there for lunch, not breakfast. Lunch menu is a little bit bigger. And we had possibly, I know it sounds pretty, I don't know, normal every day, but we did have probably the best fried chicken sandwich on a brioche that one could have.
Yes. Okay.
And really terrific apple tart and ice cream from the Bent Spoon in Princeton. So it was just a charming experience, not for everyone. Okay, hours are limited, menu is limited, but it's, I guess, done that way so that everything they do can be perfect.
Right. Let me just say,
it's not too crazy fussy.
I'm all for it. But you have opened the door. Stop me if you don't want to tell it to the fried chicken story that we didn't get to last week. And I'll just tell it fast. Because you were in Mohonk last week just to show where you stand with respect to fried chicken. And you ordered fried chicken for dinner. And Mohonk is famous for a lot of things, but not its dinner food because it is a hotel after all. And they brought you the fried chicken. And 5 minutes later, the waitress comes by as one does and said, "How is it tasting?" You turned to the waitress and said, "This is the worst fried chicken I've ever had." And Sadie gleefully tells that story. But it was true, obviously. So you're a little fussy.
I said, this is probably the worst fried chicken I have ever had in my life.
There you go.
Okay, but
Good
it all
you.
ended very nicely.
Yeah.
And, I actually didn't make a big fuss.
Yeah.
But she asked, and it was abominable, so I had to tell.
Well, if they ask, you got to say that's my my policy also.
But we ended up great friends.
Yeah, no, I'm
the waitress.
Sure. Listen, there's nothing wrong with being honest sometimes.
No, I'm rarely honest because I don't like a bad meal to slow down a good time.
Yeah, okay.
And once you start complaining about stuff, it ruins the tone. So this was an exception.
Okay, so. Quickly, on stealing signs, I'll only talk about this because you and I were talking about it. That's the big issue, or a big issue in Major League Baseball now, because the Houston Astros have been accused of stealing signs in a particularly illegal way.
Okay, now you need to explain, because not everyone, not every loyal listener is a baseball super fan.
Okay, you explain what a sign is?
Yes, stealing signs.
All right, so the catcher indicates to the pitcher.
It's not trading, the names on the doors of the locker room.
Yes, give me a chance here. The catcher tells the pitcher or indicates to the pitcher what pitch to throw, and the pitcher generally assents, and there are signs putting up 1 finger, 2 finger, 3 fingers, fastball, curveball, slider, whatever. And supposedly the hitter would have a great advantage if the pitcher knows what pitch is going to come. So it's a great sport to see if the team that's batting can steal signs and indicate to the batter, here comes a fastball, because if the batter knows what's coming, they'll hit it.
So it's a normal thing to try to figure out what the sign language is between the catcher and the pitcher,
right? Particularly
so that you can predict those signs.
Particularly if there's a man on second base, because the man on second base can see.
And then what does he do? Like signal somebody else? And signal somebody
sometimes
else?
They give 2 whistles. They have their own signs, their own signals, and the batter hears it.
So Houston was doing this.
Yes. No. Houston, maybe they were doing that, maybe they weren't, but that's not the issue. The issue is that Houston has been accused of using technology to steal signs. And that's what you're not allowed to do. Major League Baseball is not interested in how people try to steal signs the way we describe, but it's technology that's under their skin. And supposedly, Houston had set up a camera in center field and all kinds of algorithms going on to sort of decipher what the signs might be and signal that electronically to the batter. Supposedly, a pitcher named Mike Fears, who played for Houston, now says that was the case.
So somebody blew the whistle.
Yeah, if it's true. So, why do we even care? The truth is, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it is a violation, and there will be a penalty involved. The odd thing from the Mets' perspective is that they just hired Carlos Beltran, and to be the manager. And Carlos Beltran, one of the things that he was being lauded about was he's such a student of the game, he knows how to steal signs. And guess what team he was on in 2017? That's right, the Houston Astros. So, wait a minute.
Ooh.
Are the Mets hiring a guy who's involved in bad business? And now Beltran's group is saying, well, he was just stealing signs the normal way, not the technological way. So we'll have to see. Could be that Beltran never becomes the manager of the Mets. I think he's probably going to do all right here. He doesn't seem like a technical guy. But it does get a little bit murky. And it's kind of funny the way the Major League Baseball has to draw the lines here. You know, on the one hand, you say, well, you have to draw lines around technology because the home team would get an advantage. But there's something else going on. And it's that Major League Baseball has always been resistant to technology generally. They want the game played the way it was played 50 years ago, 80 years ago. They don't want things to be changing. And so whenever something comes up like stealing signs, they say, well, people did that for years and years. But if you do it a new way, not so much. So that's the controversy.
You had some good stories of people stealing signs.
Well, in the old times, you know, they used to, like when Willie Mays came up in 1951, they said, oh, we're stealing the signs, Willie, here you go. Here comes a curveball, and he leans in, and it turns out to be a fastball, and he goes flying because he's leaning in, and he almost gets hit with it. And he stands up and says to the guys, no more of that. And he plays 20 years and never gets any information with respect to signs.
He went back to, what you call it, see ball, hit ball?
See the ball, hit the ball. That's the way the best hitter is hit. And also, teams are reluctant to criticize another team for stealing signs because they do it themselves. So there's a story about Lou Piniella, when he was the manager of the Yankees, getting a directive from the press box, from the owner's box, really, from George Steinbrenner to complain about the Kansas City team stealing signs. And they said, you better act on it. And Piniella says, I'm not going to say anything. We're stealing signs also. We can't be doing that. So it's more of a, you know, it's kind of a funny thing. It's a baseball folklore thing. But again, once technology gets involved, everything changes. It's not about folklore anymore. It's about something else. So I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to lose draft choices. And I just wonder about Beltran.
Yeah. Well, that's, a good question.
Yeah.
All right. Time for a museum update.
Yes, ding, ding, ding.
And this time you'll have to go to Paris. A new exhibition in the Musée d'Orsay called Degas at the Opéra. And
I've been at that museum.
You have.
I know I have.
It's in an old train station. Speaking of converted train stations.
Yes.
It's a fantastic building.
It's probably at least as nice as the restaurant, maybe.
Great view from the upper floor.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this is an exhibition of, there are a lot of famous Degas paintings, pastels that take place backstage or from, looking at from the boxes of the Paris Opera and at the ballet and so on. And this is also going to be in Washington, D.C. at the National Gallery starting in March. So maybe you can see it there. People love Degas. People love the ballet dancers, especially the charming little statues, etc., most of which were cast after he died. The only one that was ever actually on exhibition was the little ballet dancer that is actually owned at this point, little dancer aged 14, which is actually largely made of wax, and that is owned by the National Gallery. Anyway, so, it's all very fine and interesting, and it's great the way that this article in the New York Times, and let's see who it's by, Jason Farago, and it's titled Degas, parentheses, creepy superfan. And Degas went to the opera a lot. Yeah. He went as often as he could afford it. First to the opera Le Pelletier, the company's home till the fire destroyed it in 1873, and then to the Choke Me to Death with Gold and Marble Garnier, which opened in 1875 and which Degas despised. You've been to the Opera Garnier. It's the one that's close to Debevoise in Paris.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and it is an overabundance. It's really fun. It's completely over the top in terms of architecture and decor, and great fun to walk around. Anyway, Degas, by 1885, Degas could afford the opera's most expensive subscription, which got him a seat every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the opera. Also, subscribers also had a separate entrance, so they didn't have to mess with the other people. Also, they were allowed to go backstage and had access to performers' dressing rooms, etc. And then the article goes on to state that the ballerinas of this period, and we mentioned this before in reference to another article, that these young ballerinas were really working girls. They were just one step up from prostitution in many ways, and had kind of terrible lives. And so they really described Degas as kind of this creepy superfan, almost stalker guy, watching these performers.
And then he does the sculptures of them. Yeah,
that's late in life. He's really lost his sight, and he is just he can't really paint or even, I think, do the pastels. And he does that with wax. And as I said, most of them are cast after he dies. But anyway, the article gives a slight, weird twist to looking at Degas' art. Degas supposedly hated women. He had one female friend, theoretically, Mary Cassatt, who was an expat American painter. And they worked very well together. And she was a pretty interesting person. And the article also quotes some rather, creepy, weird things that people like Van Gogh wrote about Degas.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
I don't know. So this is a little unsettling because we think of those lovely pastel paintings at the theater.
Talk about unsettling. There's this other article I brought to your attention about the Elgin marbles, which you were initially not terribly surprised or impressed. The Elgin marbles, when you walk into the British Museum, the first thing you see are these Elgin marbles, which came from Greece, and you say, I thought I was going to the British Museum, and it's obvious that the marbles...
I never said that.
I did. When I said you, I was speaking generally. I'm speaking about me. The
British Museum is another one of those places. It's supposed to be an encyclopedia of the world's art.
No one told me. It was called the British Museum. The point is that the Elgin marbles, depending on whose perspective you have, either belong in the British Museum or they don't, and that's been a little bit of a controversy. And the latest to add fuel to the fire is now the Chinese government, which says, "Where would the Greeks? We think the marbles belong back in Greece."
Rescued these, the Elgin marbles are bits of the frieze, with the Pan-Athenaic procession and so on, and bits of the pedimental sculpture. Okay, so it's not like people were taking great care of these objects. All right, at one point, gunpowder is actually being stored in the Parthenon, and when the Venetians attack, everything blows up. At a certain point, the Venetians try to dismantle some of this sculpture themselves. They drop it; it breaks. All right, so these objects have a sad history. So Lord Elgin takes them, rescues them. He claimed to have some kind of authority, some permission from the Turks to do this. People haven't been able to find anything on record. Nonetheless, he gets it, a good bit of stuff to England, and Parliament purchases
from him
these objects in 1816 after much discussion. So anyway, but still, but it's questionable. No question about that. It's questionable. But it just struck me as funny that President Xi Jinping has come out to support the Greek desire to get those marbles back.
It's funny.
And, this is an ongoing effort on the part of the Greeks to reclaim their heritage. And, of course, reclaim the touristic money that goes along with people wanting to see those irreplaceable world-famous icons of classical Greek sculpture.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny. I mentioned it to you, and you, instead of picking up on what we'll call the more art history aspect of it, you, to your credit, said right away, the Chinese have sort of imperialistic designs, don't they? And maybe that's what's behind this. They, on the one hand, are trying to become greater friends with the Greeks, and on the other hand...
They've been making big investments.
In Greece?
In Greece, yes.
And you're tuned. Nothing escapes you.
No, and you can see it's an inroad for them to, the West. Okay.
All right.
They've been making investments all over the world. All right. But Greece is in dire need of financial aid, so to speak. So I think it's purely mercenary. Of course, the point you raised was good. You can raise that point. Thank you.
But there are Chinese sculptures that probably left China under similar circumstances, and they'd be interested in getting those back too.
Right, perhaps reclaiming their heritage.
Right.
But this seems to me a very particular strategic political move.
Okay.
I doubt the sincerity tremendously, but, I understand the desire to have some control over your heritage, unless it's just a purely
political thing,
financial move.
Well, we'll see how it goes. So here's really the big story to me about the Major League Baseball this week, and this is a big story, and that is Major League Baseball is taking steps to reduce the number of affiliated minor league teams. There are 162 or so minor league teams, 160 minor league teams, and in negotiations with the players union has complained about the salaries to the minor league teams, some of the conditions, all kinds of things. And Major League Baseball has said, okay, here's what we'll do. We will consolidate the minor league teams, which is another word for eliminate a bunch of them, and put in higher standards with respect to the remaining teams. We'll be able to pay those fewer players higher salaries. We'll only keep the best fields and the best in the biggest cities, and that'll take care of what you want. There's only one problem with that. The teams that are eliminated are going crazy because you have, again, 160 teams. They are dropping 42 teams. They're adding 2. So
May I just say I'm against this?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
We've been extolling the virtues of the small town minor league team.
I'm with you, but hear me out for just a second. Okay. All right. So there are teams like the Lexington Legends, who they write about at some length in the Times. This team is in Lexington, Kentucky. They get 4,000 a game. They're very popular in Lexington, which is not the smallest city in the world. They contribute to charities. They do all kinds of great things. And they're wonderful. They've been awarded the top Class A franchise. They're a success by many markers. They're on the list to be eliminated. So what is the answer that the Major League Baseball gives to these teams which otherwise are successfully financial when he says we're cutting you off? They say, well, we're not really putting you out of business. All we're doing is ending the affiliation. What you should do, and what we'll be happy to encourage you to do, is to remain a team as an independent, in an independent league. And there'll be something called the Dream League, and you'll be in it, and we'll actually contribute to administrative expenses and stuff like that, and you can continue to participate. The Lexington team, the Ogden Raptors, the Lowell Mass Spinners, you'll continue to be in a different league. No problem. You'll be great. So that's the debate, because the minor league teams are saying, no, the only thing that makes it go, the thing that makes people feel that it's professional baseball of a high caliber is affiliation.
Yeah.
And the major league players saying, nah, you're exaggerating that. You guys are so good at promoting. The locals love you. Maybe you'll get some local players in. You won't worry so much about affiliation. You'll do fine. So that's the debate. It's not as if Major League Baseball wants these folks to disappear. They don't. Mm-hmm. They very much don't want them to disappear. Mm-hmm. They're just taking away the affiliation. Now, then you get more deeply into it, and you hear from the owner of the Ogden Raptors in this article, and the owner of the Clinton, Iowa Lumber Kings, and so on. And they say, what do you think? They say Dream League They're dreaming. We're going to go out of business in 10 seconds because the affiliation means, frankly, that the major league teams are paying the salaries of everybody. You're going to cut off our affiliation. This is not going to work. We're going to just go down like that. So it's a...
Won't the better players want to just play for the affiliated teams?
Okay, well, for sure the affiliate teams will have the better players. There's no question about that. But, what are you selling in a minor league team? Are you selling, can you sell baseball that's perhaps a cut below what it's been before, but sell it on your own terms? It's not as if there are not successful independent league teams now. The team that we watch in Somerset is an independent team.
I understand, but it is not the greatest baseball.
Ooh, I hadn't heard you say that before, but you're right.
I love everything about it,
yeah.
But it seems to me if a level of it drops too low, it will...
Well, look, this has been...
as charming as it is.
This is a big issue in Ogden, Utah, and in Lexington, Kentucky, and in Lowell, Massachusetts, and in Clinton, Iowa, and in places like that. 42 different teams being dropped. That's a lot. So we'll see. I think that is a big deal.
So... the New York Times runs a series of obituaries that it's called Overlooked, or sometimes it's called Overlooked No More. And it's obituaries that should have been written like 100 years ago or 150 years ago, and these people didn't get picked up till now. And so you mentioned one this week. You said, it's another one of those phony obits.
Phony obit.
And I gave you a hard time about that. I said, it's not phony. It's just that...
it's not an obit.
It wasn't written when they died. And you know what it turned out? I read this obituary. It is a phony obit.
Is it right?
You were 100% correct in the sense it's about someone who went by the name Annie Londonderry.
Yeah.
And her claim to fame, she lived from 1870 to 1947. Her claim to fame was that she was the first woman to ride her bike around the world.
Yeah.
But she didn't really.
Yeah.
She had crafted for herself all kinds of stories about where she was from and what she had done. And really, she was a Latvian immigrant who, moved to Boston with her family and married some guy, and at the age of 23 decides to do this stunt. She has kids.
Yeah, she
goes
leaves the family.
Off,
she goes off
riding this bike. Theoretically around the world.
Yeah.
Only she went by boat a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And she gave a lot of talks, and she told all these stories. Most of them seem not to have been true.
Right.
About adventures she had, things she did. With her gift for self-invention and self-promotion, there was as much P.T. Barnum in her as there was Susan B. Anthony. Because another thing that's touted about this was the bicycle was, the great gift to women's independence.
Right.
Women could get around now and not be trapped and have jobs. It also changed women's attire. Women began to wear the bloomers because dresses are impossible on those long dresses with the petticoats. Impossible on a bike. So anyway, the story itself just kind of reels between what was supposed to be true and yet how much of it probably was not. So you were right. It's a phony obit.
All right. Well, here's a quick thing on college football. I mean, the big story is that the Alabama quarterback, Tua, got hurt, and he'll be out for the rest of the season, and Alabama won't be a factor in the college football playoffs. But put that aside. You know what's weird about college football? Just one line quickly. People bet on college football. People bet a lot on college football, and they, in Vegas has these very scientifically arrived at point spreads. Ohio State this week was playing, I should get the team, playing Rutgers, right? And they were made the favorite by 51 points. Okay, let's get this right. 51 points. That's crazy. That's crazy. That means the expectation is before the game that Ohio State's going to win by 51 points. And if they don't, it's a triumph for Rutgers. They stayed, it's nuts.
Within 40 points.
Yeah. And in fact, that's what happened. Rutgers lost by 41 points. Great news. But I mean, what kind of competition is this? I mean,
who sets up the game?
Well, that's because Rutgers is in the Big Ten, and they're in their Big Ten for money and whatever, and everyone's in Big Ten happy to play Rutgers and beat their brains in every week. But you can't have games like this. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's one thing, sure, you see the score that got out of hand, you know it. But if people expect it, 51 points, it's ridiculous. So in any event, it just struck me. And you had, yes, I'm waiting for this.
This is a review of a book, all right? And even though I may read this book, it's called, the review is called Hear Ye, a primer on sound and hearing and on the technologies that can help save our ears in a deafening world. So this is about a book called Volume Control, Hearing in a Definite World by David Owen, described as a New Yorker writer, David Owen. The review is by Daniel Levitin, and he says it's a great book. It is the best primer I've ever read on sound and hearing, full of advice for anyone of any age to consider if they want to preserve their ability to listen to music, carry on conversations, etc., and so forth. And it really sounds like he gives a lot of valuable information in, describing how hearing works. But there's also just a lot of fun stories, even about nature, like bats. Okay, so the review mentions, well, we know that bats do this sound thing. Right. What's it called? Echolocation. Right. All right.
Like submarines.
But the way that Owen describes it is the sounds, they're at this super high frequency pitch, right? Mm-hmm. The sounds are incredibly loud. Right. We can't hear them because of the frequency, but if we could, it would sound like the bats are shooting guns out of their mouths. Right. And in fact, how do they survive it? Their hearing turns off for like a split second until the sound bounces back. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of interesting. There is also another story that goes with the bats, and that is that one of their natural prey, which is a particular moth, has actually evolved scales on their wings and a fur-like coat on their body that kind of absorbs the sound so that it can't bounce back and give the bats the location of where they are.
Oh, really?
So that's kind of interesting. So it's full of kind of great stories like that. It's also stories about the importance of hearing. And there's an interesting case of New York City school right next to, above ground train of some sort. Mm-hmm. And when the train would go by, it would be this deafening sound so that the teachers and students couldn't hear each other talk. They actually did a study comparing students having classes on that side of the school with students going to class on the other side of the school, and comparing their success in school. And it said the ones next to the train actually ended up falling almost a year behind academically. Wow. I mean, there are lots of competing factors there, but it's sound can be really crucial to a lot of aspects of your life and your sanity. And they say that in terms of cognitive ability, up to 93% of the variability in scores on neuropsychological tests occurs due to uncorrected hearing loss.
Really?
Okay. So, and just a couple other points that are kind of interesting. This is an interesting story. They talk about people who have never been able to hear before, and then they get, some kind of treatment like a cochlear implant or a hearing aid, and they're able to hear. And it's really surprising for them to find out that some things have noises. He describes it as, they're really surprised by noises like farts, peeing, refrigerators, okay? The difference between somebody talking with sarcasm versus sincerity. And then there's a surprise that other things don't have sound. Snow doesn't make a sound. Sunlight doesn't make a sound when it bursts out. Including one person who said they thought breasts would have a sound. I don't get that at all, but I don't know what they're supposed to do. But anyway, it sounds like a very enlightening.
No comment on that. Yeah. Okay.
And it ends with this: that the technology of being able to improve hearing loss, or combat hearing loss, both to prevent it and both to correct it, is improving manyfold. It's a good time to have a hearing problem, apparently.
All right. Well, that's encouraging. So just to close quickly, I'd like to get something from the book section every once in a while, the Times book section, and there was a funny letter in which a 70-plus... I'll just read it. As a woman named Felicia Ackerman. As a 70-plus woman from Brooklyn, I was taken aback by Sandra Lowe's remark in her review of a book by Megan Daum about her 70-plus friend who wears Native American jewelry without irony. This is Ms. Ackerman speaking. Why do I need irony to wear my Native American jewelry? What does Lowe think I'm entitled to wear without irony? A Brooklyn Dodgers baseball cap? I mean, so there you go. But anyway, so this is a broader interest. They say that they listed, they like to do a report on strange things you find on authors' websites. So Lee Child, who writes the Jack Reacher books, has on his website the opportunity to buy Jack Reacher coffee. He sells coffee on his website. The character drinks coffee like crazy. And Child says on the website they sell a particular blend. He says, I love this blend, and Reacher would too. So there you go. So a pound costs $15. Ann Patchett, who I know that you're reading now, or maybe perhaps you just finished, has the number 6 fiction title, The Dutch House. Did you finish The Dutch House?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. Everyone likes Ann Patchett. Well known to have a bookstore.
In Nashville.
Called Parnassus. And if you get on her website, what you see is a report from the Bookshop Dogs. It says, hello, friends. We, the shop dogs of Parnassus Books, have some updates for you, which seems that while we were out back on the grassy spot behind the store, toasting our bellies in the summer sun, some changes happened in the shop. Here's a report. So you can get that every week. Stephen King has a website which he makes various observations. He sells a Shawshank Prison t-shirt. But beyond that, he responds to questions, including one about, is it true you have a haunted house on Halloween in your house? And he said, I did that. We used to do that. We don't do it anymore, because one time we had 1,400 people show up for candy. We ran out of candy. It was a bad situation. It's fun, but it wears everybody out and plays hell with the law. So we're not doing that anymore. And finally, James Patterson, author of a million different detective novels, gives movie reviews. And I'll just give you one. Here's his review, a 2-line review of The Joker. Quote, if you're feeling a little suicidal and want to feel a lot suicidal, this is your movie.
All right. Well, let's go have some birthday cake.
Yes, it's
while
time.
We're at it. And so this is Tamsen Granger.
And Dan Abuhoff.
And with Tamsen and Dan read the paper. We'll see you again next week.